This ancient Greek civilization read aloud is called Athens, the Birthplace of Democracy. Today you will listen to learn more about the city-state of Athens and about a very important contribution that it gave to the world. Let's take a look at our ancient Greek civilization chart. Let's take a look at the city-states section. What do you remember about these images? Today we will learn more about the city-state of Athens and how it was very different from the city-state of Sparta. In the read aloud today, we will find out more about the leaders and the contributions of the ancient Greek civilization. Here are some vocabulary words in our read aloud today. The first word is architecture. The art of designing buildings and other structures. The style in which buildings and other structures are designed. The next word is debated. Discussed or argued different points of view. The last word is democracy. A way of governing or ruling that gives the people the power to choose their leaders and help create their own laws. Let's begin our story. Hero and Dion were on their way to Dion's home, passing through the central marketplace of Athens, where people spent as much time conversing as they did shopping. The two men stopped to buy some olives at a farmer's booth that stood beneath the branches of two old olive trees. As they stepped out into the sunlight again, Dion turned to look up at the top of the high hill. "Really, Hero?" Dion asked. "Is there a more beautiful spectacle anywhere than the Parthenon? My father and I traveled to many wonderful places on our trading voyage around the Mediterranean, but I never saw anything equal to it." Hero agreed as he looked up at the magnificent temple. Just as the city-state of Sparta focused on self-discipline and training for battle, the Athenians focused on their love of art, beautiful architecture, and sculpture. The Athenians filled their remarkable city-state with graceful buildings that were pleasing to the eye. Inside these buildings and in the public spaces around them, famous artists created statues for all to enjoy. Statues that even today are considered some of the finest ever made. The Athenians were wealthy enough to cover a 40-foot high statue of Athena in gold before setting it in the Parthenon. The ancient Greeks showed their devotion to Athena by visiting her statue and offering her prayers and gifts. At the same time that the arts were the glory of Athens, Athenian scientists were making discoveries that would become the basis for modern science. For example, one scientist you will learn about was a great observer whose ideas and classifications are still used today. Other ancient Greeks contributed inventions that the next civilizations developed more fully, including the gear, screw, watermill, and catapult. Plumbing, using furnaces to melt and shape iron, and using air, water, or steam for central heating. Athenian merchants, such as Dion and his father, were trading as far west as Britain and as far east as India. These merchants brought back goods and even more knowledge from distant lands. This is another way that Athens differed from Sparta. As you heard earlier, Sparta was a closed society, meaning that most of the people were not allowed to travel outside of the city for trade or exploration. At the heart of all these remarkable achievements was the Athenian belief that human beings could achieve almost anything they set their minds to, and in whatever they could not achieve, they could at least fail with grand grace. It was this belief in the benefit or good of independent thinking, or thinking for oneself, that led to the greatest of all the Athenian gifts to the world, greater than the art, the architecture, or the Olympic Games, the gift of Democracy. As Hero and Dion continued walking on that sunny afternoon so long ago, they glanced ahead and saw a face that they knew well. "It's Pericles!" Hero exclaimed. All Athenians knew the man whom they had elected to run their government year after year. Pericles held great power, both as an army general and as the leader of their government. However, like all Athenian leaders, he had to be re-elected to his office every year, and if the Athenians did not like the job he was doing, they could vote him out of office or right out of Athens for up to 10 years. It had not always been this way. In the past, Athens had been ruled by a king. Then, several nobles started to rule in place of the king. Finally, a new leader came along who thought every citizen should be able to take part in his government. Originally, only men who were born in Athens and who were considered wealthy enough were allowed to be citizens. These citizens had the right to vote, to be a part of a jury that made decisions in a court of law, and to serve in the assembly, a large group of men who debated and created the laws. Over time, even poor men and some merchants who were not born in Athens, but who lived and traded there, were allowed to take part in the assembly. However, because there were too many citizens, over 5,000, participating in this assembly, it became too difficult to manage the meetings and allow everyone to have their say. Eventually, the Athenians decided to have some citizens from each area come to the assembly to represent the people from their area, so that the group could be smaller and easier to manage. Every citizen still had the right to choose who would represent them in the smaller assembly. Women, however, did not have the rights to do any of these things, although they could own lands and have their own money. Athenian girls also did not have the right to attend school as the boys did. For Athenian women, it was more important that they learn to cook, sew, and clean. However, all well-educated young ladies learned at least enough mathematics at home to be in charge of a household budget, and some who had learned reading and writing at home were widely admired for their intelligence and learning. Most Athenians knew that the best woman friend of Pericles, leader of the Athenians, wrote many of his famous speeches for him. Yet she was not permitted to listen to him speak those words in the assembly, nor to vote for the laws he suggested. Seeing Pericles up ahead now, Dion asked Hero, "Who are those two men with him?" Hero peered above the heads of others in the crowd. "Only one of the greatest writers in the world, and the artist who designed the statue of Athena," Hero answered. He smiled. "Only in Athens could you witness a conversation among the greatest living political leader, a world-famous writer, and such a celebrated artist. Don't you wonder what those great men are talking about?" "Whatever it is," Dion responded, "I'm sure it is a most fascinating conversation." Let's take another look at our ancient Greek civilization chart. Remember, a civilization is a group of people living together in a well-organized way. We are studying different aspects of the ancient Greek civilization, including jobs, city-states, leaders, religion, and contributions. Let's go ahead and add to our chart. What do you see in this picture? What was special about the city-state of Athens? Remember, Athens was the birthplace of democracy, a type of government that we have today. Where should we put this picture on our chart? We will put this picture in the contribution section. What do you see in this picture? This is a statue of Pericles. What do you remember about this leader? Where should we put this picture on our chart? We will put this picture in our Leaders section. Here are some discussion questions. Feel free to pause the video in order to allow time to think and discuss. What structure did Dion describe as the most beautiful spectacle in Athens? What was the Parthenon? What is democracy? How did Athens come up with the idea of democracy? What are some of the contributions or achievements that Athens made to modern civilizations? What was the group of citizens called who met together to debate and create laws? Were women allowed to be a part of the assembly? How do you think they felt about this? What two main city-states have you learned about? How are they different? Which city-state would you have preferred to live in, Athens or Sparta? Why? Have you, like the ancient Greeks, ever had an idea that was completely different from what everyone else was doing or thinking? How did other people react to it?